Thanks you guys for hanging in here today. It's been a great in-depth day. We've had a chance to explore all sorts of things that Luminar AI can do. So in the chat pod, I put a bunch of freebies. We've mentioned these a little bit. So if you scroll up, you'll probably see them. And there's textures and LUTs and all sorts of things. Today was not a super fancy day. You know, we just wanted to have on a bunch of different creative folks. You've seen some editing tips. You've heard some artistry tips. You heard about the little bit of where we're going as a company. In case you missed it, our CEO announced earlier today that we are actively working on Luminar for mobile and portable devices. So that was a cool reveal earlier this morning. Hope you guys caught that. And we have been recording everything in case you missed it. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to walk through a bunch of cool things that we can do. So I want to take you through some of the awesome features here that Luminar offers. And I've also got your questions up. So if you have questions, please go ahead and toss those in. I see Frank asking about infrared effects. We don't do anything specific for infrared photography, but you can load LUTs. There are LUTs out there for infrared, so not a problem. Let's go here as well. I'm glad you guys enjoyed some of the things that Rick was showing. Let's start with a simple image example. And I'm just going to take a regular JPEG to start. You know, we're going to go in and we'll work with some images here that are fine, but I want to show you how much Luminar can do to enhance this type of image, even if it is a JPEG, so you can see exactly what is possible. So let's just go ahead and hide the dock. And I think that's good. All right, and here we go. So I'll start with templates, and templates will scan the image and make a suggestion. So it recommended the big screen category to start. And with simple clicks, I could see interesting options. And this helps me audition or consider. I also like to look at that as a split screen. So I'll click that split screen button there, making it a little bit easier to see what's happening. And that way I can audition different categories and decide what it is I like. Now I like this sunshine here, but I want to go a step further. So using my edit tools, I see everything organized. We start with our essentials up here, then we go into creative, then we've got portrait tools and professional tools. Well, let's start here with the portrait tool for a moment. A lot of folks wouldn't think of it, but look at how face light works. Even on a non-traditional close-up portrait, it could find those faces and fill in the light. And even from a side profile, with sunglasses on and just one eye closed, it still found the faces, making it very easy to just fill those in, and you see what a nice job that does. And speaking of that, since the portrait tools are working here, let's go down to skin, and we could just smooth over the skin a little bit, and you see what that's able to do. It even was able to take out some of the defects on the skin with just a click. And if you see others you want to remove, like if there's a scratch or anything like that, remember what's awesome now is that the eraser tool, the erase tool here, is non-destructive. So you can go right in, click on any blemishes that you need to clean up, and when you click erase, it's going to look at the surrounding pixels and come up with those. And it didn't matter the order that I went. So I was able to put a LUT and some other recipes on there ahead of time. This goes under the hood, works on the original pixels so that we could fix them. And then when we leave the tool, it's going to actually have all of those things fixed. So you see how flexible that is to go in. And again, you just brush over the areas. Now, when I leave the erase tool, I'm still free to work with my mood tool or anything else. So we could dial in that sunshine LUT just a little stronger, put a little more saturation in it. And I'm going to add a little bit of warmth. But before I do that, I'm going to use sun rays, but in a non-traditional way. A lot of folks don't know, you could drag the center of the sun off. And it's not that I want to add rays here. I'm going to turn the amount up for a moment, but we're going to play with this. So what I'm going to do is take the number of rays down. And I could randomize this, which cycles through the amounts. Now what I'm going to do is pull down the length of the sun rays, and instead just use a little bit of the sun radius and a little bit of the warmth. And what that's doing is it's actually creating, you can see how it's adding to the scene. So this could add just a hint of light to your scene And with the overall look slider, that adjusts the intensity. So I know it may seem strange, but I've actually put the sun off screen, but using my overall look and amount slider here, notice how I could add or even subtract light from the scene. So I know that most people think of sun rays as a landscape photography tool, but what I just showed you is it acts as a virtual light. So you could use this to relight your photograph and just put it off screen like that, just pick it up into the corner there. Now you'll see a little hint of it coming in, but you could adjust the radius there on that sun glow and the sun radius, but you could again use the amount and the overall look to dial it in, which is pretty cool. All right, Robin, we don't do stitch panoramas, but there's a lot of tools on the market that will do that, okay? Robin, other Robin, I'm very sorry to hear that you're having flooding in Australia. I hope everyone's safe. All right, so we did some sun rays. Let's go in and again use another tool you wouldn't think about for portraits, which is the landscape tool. And I'm going to use golden hour, which brings out the warmth of the sun, which is very nice to just give this a warmer feeling to the image. Then using dramatic, I could increase the contrast of the image a little bit, and I'll just reset the saturation here up to 0 so it's not shifting. So if we look at that before and after, you see how we took the really harsh, not good light of the middle of the day, and we just added depth and dynamic range and contrast to really pull that together, which just works out great. So I hope that that made sense to you guys. We're going to do a bunch of other recipes, but one of the things I'm trying to do is show you how we could do some other options using tools. So you guys could see that we can actually pull off some techniques in non-traditional ways. All right, if you got questions, throw them in the chat pod. We're going to go on to another image here, but what you saw there was using landscape tools on portraits. And you can use these tools any way that you want. All right, let's do a sky replacement here. So we've got a lovely session. Couple looks fantastic, clearly in love, but the sky just didn't work out this day. So I want to show you some of the new options that were added in Update 2. So there's a bunch of cool things that were added to the Sky AI tool that you might have missed. So you'll go here under the Sky AI tool. It's in Creative. There it is. And I'll just zoom in a little bit here. And from the sky selection, you could browse. You can also, with all skies, click the plus button here to add in extra skies. So I'm going to add in these nice romantic skies here, but I want to finesse it a little bit. So after I add that, you see, oh wait, why is there a glow around it? Well, there's a couple things we can do. Part of the reason is it's a low quality JPEG. The other is that there was some haze in the image. So watch how we can finesse this. Using our relighting tools, we can relight the humans to match. And when we do, that glow goes away in a large part. We can also adjust the saturation and the overall relighting strength. And notice how that is making a better composite there. So you want to use those relight tools to control the transitions on your edges. Additionally, let's punch in here on the hair a little bit. I'm going to come down to Mask Refinement. So I'll start with Fix Details. Fix Details is going to analyze that and really clean up that edge. Then you could use the global slider and start to inch that up slowly. And what that's going to do is increase the strength of the effect. So you could dial that in and that works nicely, or just play with the close gaps amount. So sometimes you want to take that slider down, sometimes you're going to want to take that up. And so you might be surprised there, but in this case, negative close gaps actually worked better. So because we had this little tiny hooks and this cool edge on the hair, I actually pulled close gaps down and pulled Fixed Details and global up a little bit, and we got such a better transition there. So that works nicely there on that edge. Now, a couple more things. With the orientation tools, you now have more flexibility. So if your horizon isn't level and you like that in the picture, you can actually rotate the sky to match the horizon. And we'll use horizon blending here to create a nice natural transition. And you'll see that we can offset the sky until it matches. So get that to match the horizon line that you want. Horizon blending, nice and natural. And then using our reflection amount, we could introduce those colors from that sky onto the water, which works well. And since the background is not in focus, guys, the sky should not be in focus. So I'm going to use the defocus tools here just to match that to everything else in the scene in the background. So this way our eye is drawn to the couple, which works really well. All right, that's a whole bunch of new things that we added there. And remember, atmospheric haze is a great addition too. This way you can match the sky to the rest of the scene. There was some fog and mist on the water, so that really unifies it with the atmospheric haze. And I could warm or cool that sky, and it really holds together well. Now, here's what's cool. Accent AI works on the whole scene, and Sky Enhancer even works on the new sky that you layer in to bring it to life. So don't forget about the really cool Sky Enhancer tool that works on your existing sky or the new sky that you add in. Also, we've really improved our local masking tools. We'll talk more about texture on that, but you could use this to create a nice basic overlay. So what I can do here is put a gentle gradient here or a little bit of a radial. But I'm going to put a gentle gradient mask coming from the back side here and just gently lower that exposure a little bit. I'll overdo it here, but there we go. Just a little bit down. Pop the highlights so they're nice and bright still. Pull the shadows down. And I could add a little bit of negative structure. So it just de-emphasizes that area there. And you see how your eye is naturally pulled into the subject a little bit better. So don't be afraid to paint with those local masking tools. It's a really nice way to unify that. Okay? All right. So you can use Photoshop Elements. You'll have to get the plugin from support. We don't officially install into Photoshop Elements. Photoshop Elements does not have a smart filter workflow, so you can't run filters non-destructively. You just have to run them as normal filters. Okay? All right. The Apple ProRAW format does work. It comes in as a DNG file. It's not doing the HDR tone mapping, and it's not doing a few other things, but let me show that real quick. So this will give me an opportunity to show a few things. First up, we do have the ability to work as a plugin for Photos for macOS. I'm just jumping into Photos for macOS here though, so I can show you the ProRAW file, and I'm going to pull one out. So let me just size this here so I can fit it a little bit better. And we'll go back a level. And so you could jump in. I'll skip past my COVID card here. And you'll see that I have some raw files and some non-raw files. So this will allow you, you can also sort, and you can see that there is a raw category as well if you want to narrow that down. So this allows you to browse the content. So here I've got a nice shot of some blueprints and a plan that someone was working on. So you can see there that that's one of the ProRAW files. If I look at this, this was captured using the iPhone 12 Pro. And this is in that ProRAW format. Now, first up, if you're editing inside of Photos for macOS, you could just click Edit and then click the button here and actually open up Luminar AI directly. But I want to show you the ProRAW file. So what's important here is when you export this out, make sure you export the unmodified original photo. So that way you could put that out, and I'll just say export. And I'll put that on my desktop because since this is a live demo, I need to put all my files on my desktop. Okay, now what I could do is in Luminar, if I want to open up just a single image, click the plus button and say Add Image. This will allow you to navigate, and there's that Apple ProRAW file. And I'll choose Open. The image opens up and it comes in. Absolutely fine. So it's a DNG file. We don't support the depth map feature yet. That's something that they're just starting to unlock for third-party developers. But you'll see that in the Light tool, this absolutely is a raw file. And you could switch which one you use. I suggest the Luminar default color profile because the Adobe standard one is a lot brighter. But you could take a look at that. And you can also download third-party profiles, like there's a whole bunch of DCP files out there for the iPhone 12. So as you can see there, it definitely came in with the raw file. We could take advantage of things like Accent AI. We can use our Structure AI to bring out those details very nicely in the scene. And everything is there in the raw file. So I hope that that addresses how can we use ProRAW. As you see there, you just need to give it the ProRAW file. You can also use other utilities to pull the ProRAW files off of your iPhone. When you use the share command, your iPhone converts it to either an HEIC file or a JPEG file. So you obviously want to go ahead and do this, okay? So you're talking about these add-ons we gave you. Just put them somewhere on your hard drive and then you can access them. I store mine in my documents folder, but whatever works for you, Sonia. And I'm going to show you some of those add-ons now. So let me show you one of the things I gave you. I'm going to do a full edit here, and we're going to do a fun, stylized edit for a feeling of rock and roll. So here, we've got a nice picture of our artist, musician, and it has this cool vintage feeling. It's obviously been edited a little bit, but I want to lean into this a little bit more to bring out that feeling. So a couple things. First up, the edit menu, take advantage of enhance. And in fact, take advantage of templates. Templates could really jumpstart this. It recognized that this was a sunset photo. So if I want to lean into that, I could very quickly pull out that feeling based upon the content. And if it's too strong, you could back it off. So that's a quick way to dial in the look for an image if you need it. I'm just going to reset Shift-Command-R for a second, and let's develop this normally. A little bit of Enhance AI, filled in that washed out area from we had some lens flares going on from the light shining in. And remember, lens flares aren't just something J.J. Abrams uses. If you shine light directly into the lens, you can get this washed out look and you may not want it. So Enhance AI and Structure AI brought all of that back. Now what I want to do is give this a color grade. So I'm going to come on into my Mood tool and I could load LUTs. So you'll just say load custom LUT file. And I gave you these fun analog LUTs earlier. So these are a nice vintage feeling and you could dial in the strength of those. And they're a great way to color grade. Put the contrast in and control the intensity of the color, giving you a muted look or a very strong look. So you can see there, it's a nice way to just quickly color grade. Want to try another mood? Let's go in here. And you'll see that there's a wide range, including some fun black and white ones. But I'm just going to apply some of these, and these are a nice film stock emulation. And you can see there how quickly we can get that style going that we want. Now, using our local masking tool, we support textures. So you could load in textures, and we had this tool before, but now with the load texture button, you could do all sorts of things. We gave you light leaks. We also gave you our paper texture kit in the links. And here I've got all sorts of cool overlays. So I got this cool vintage canvas, and I'm going to go with this more traditional one, a stretched canvas, and load it in. It's going to layer on top automatically. And using our opacity slider, we could adjust the intensity of that effect. Plus, if you want, you can go in and blend it. Also, maybe you like that effect, but you don't want it on the skin so much. Just grab your eraser tool, lower the opacity and the softness. There you go, nice soft brush. And you could just partially erase on the skin areas so that the effect isn't as intense there where his skin is. So now I just get a nice, gentle, less effect there, but the texture comes through on the rest of the image. And I'll just dial that back a little bit to taste. Now we've got a feeling of a paper stock there, which I like. Need to? You can add another image in. Just go to texture. And we gave you some torn edges. So you just click the load texture button, navigate to the hard drive, and we gave you these torn edges as well in the download links. So I'm going to take this one here for torn white. There we go. This one has some scratches to it as well. And once you've loaded it in, takes just a second because it's a high quality texture, you'll click the Place Texture button. This will give you the flexibility so you can adjust it. So you could just zoom out as needed and just grab that there and start to pull. So I could just adjust that, put it into place like so, kind of get it in the right ballpark area. And once you've decided where you want that, it's simple. So if this texture is really big like this one is, you could pull that down. And now it's partially see-through because of how we've set this to start. But you see, nice and simple, and you could just scale it to match your canvas. I like that. Feels good. I'm just going to take it a little wider, like so. And now, once it's placed, I can go in and just adjust the opacity back up. And now we've got that nice feeling of a frame. So you can see there how it's created the cool overlay and given it a feeling of a rough brushed edge. So you can do all sorts of things with these fun textures. Change your mind, just turn it off. And remember, with templates and overlays, everything can be synced. So I could take that, select another photo, and just choose to synchronize those two. So you see the one selected in blue? Sync adjustments. It's going to take that, move those adjustments, and automatically apply it to the other photo. And you'll see that the texture also adjusted to match that canvas size. So that gives you that flexibility, and then you can go in there and finesse it. So this one has just a hint of opacity in it. If you want to change it out, no problem. Just load another texture. You can go to another one here, torn white, click it, and it's going to automatically conform and drop in. So you can swap one texture out for another as you're playing with it. And so that gives you a lot of fun flexibility. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on what you could do with these. Let me go forward here. I'm just going to take this all the way back to 100% and see that fade blends the texture too. So if it was blending, you could set that back to 100. Okay, I hope that gives you some ideas on how those work. I now want to solve some problems. So again, folks, we got about 40 minutes here to get through your questions. So I'll walk you through. By the way, this is an example of stacking. So what you can actually do is you can load multiple photos on top of each other, and I just brushed them out here so you can see the skater as he goes through the park. So you could do fun examples like that, or we could do things like this. So I'm going to actually go here, and I'm going to take this photo of fire. And now I'm going to layer on top of it a silhouette. So what you could do is use this to create overlays. So you just go in, load the other texture, and you could start to stack those. So it's a lot of fun. So you can go in and do it one of two ways. So you could put the silhouette on top of the fire if you want, like so. And it's going to drop that in place. Now I can flip that. Let's take that up to 100, but change its blending mode. And so if I use screen, it drops out the shadows and lets us layer that in. Or you could see other options here, like lighten, for example. I like that one a little bit better. And so you could do a cool double exposure effect like this. Just layer the silhouette over the other one. And using the overlay, it works really well. So that's super simple. And remember, under the advanced settings here, you can finesse the contrast on your overlay after you layer it in. You could adjust the saturation and the brightness level. And you can see there how that gives you more control over how those things are going to mix together. So I hope that gives you some creative ideas. I want to go on to some other areas, but I hope that that makes sense. Let me put the links into the download one more time because you guys are asking about those. So let me just drop that in. Make sure you have it. Copy. And don't everyone, let's just put that in there to panelists and attendees. Hold on. Paste. And here's the other part. Return and paste. There you go. And we put that code in there, the $10 deep dive code, so you can save on multiple items. Someone shared earlier, they bought 10 items and they saved $100. So they went in and they bought a bunch of looks and templates and things that they wanted, and they were able to pull some cool stuff together. Okay, let's go on to another scenario. And I want to show you some additional editing. We're here in our catalog, and we're just going to tackle an image that we can make a bit better. So I want to take an image that's nice and natural, but has some problems. So we'll take this cold, snowy image, and we're working with the raw file here. So this image looks good, but there's parts about it that bug me, including this weird color cast. So I'm going to come in, and templates will analyze the image and make a suggestion. So it suggested scenery, easy landscapes, and waterscapes. It's not water, obviously, but it sees the snow. I can do scenery here, and clear and sharp was a great time saver. It just instantly popped the colors and sharpened the image. And you could see how quickly that snow came to life. Now I'll go into edit. And what we'll do is take advantage of a couple of tools that are super simple. First up, Enhance AI really brings out the dynamic range. And Sky Enhancer works on all skies. So maybe I want that nice cream blue, but look at Sky Enhancer. Here's why you use Sky Enhancer. It only does the sky. Because if we went to color and did what every other photo editor did and cranked up vibrance, look at how it destroyed our photo. See, Sky Enhancer masks the sky and doesn't give you any of this garbage of adding extra colors in places you don't want it. So when you use the Sky Enhancer, it only enhances the sky. So I hope that that makes sense. Like, a lot of folks are like, oh, I'd never use sky replacement. Fine, don't use sky replacement. But for gosh sake, use Sky Enhancer, because it uses the same intelligent algorithm to select the sky and lets you enhance what you already have. So that works really well. And if you go, you know, that was working really well, but I really wish there were some clouds back there, you can go in and browse. And by the way, we'll see some cool improvements to this tool too. But you could layer those in, and when you choose them, it's going to start to put it in there. Now, because we got a little overlay here, you see there, it starts to blend in. That's nice. You can adjust the amount slider. Now, it's getting a little confused by the snow here. That's not a big deal. That's going to actually get updated really soon for the improved algorithm that we have inside of Sky AI. But I like that. Let's go ahead here, though, and fix the color. So I'm going to remove the color cast. And look at how one slider just pulled all of that unwanted color out of the snow. I didn't have to work hard. And with Composition AI, we can level the photo, straighten the verticals, and even get a suggested crop. All of those are going to really speed up that workflow for you. And you see that it recommended a little bit of a different crop there, which is nice. If I need to, I can go into my Erase tool and simply paint out objects that I find distracting. So just click on the canvas, paint away anything you don't want, and then when you click Erase, it will analyze the scene and come up with new textures, filling that material in with a believable pattern. It's not just a simple clone, it actually looks all around there and generates new pixels. So that works really nicely. And if you want to do some cool things here, remember, with the local masking, you could control where structure goes. So if you feel like you got some good structure in there, but you want a little more on this snow, just click on local masking and add. And in the basic tool, you'll see that there is structure. So I could just paint. I'll tell this to go ahead and show the mask and quickly paint over these areas. And so I just want to put a little bit more detail there into that cool snow. I just want that texture in the foreground snow to be a little tighter. If you need to erase, grab the Erase tool and you can adjust there and just paint. Now we'll hide the mask. Keyboard shortcut is /. And with Structure AI, look at how I could bring that snow and increase the dynamic range there. So it's really cool. And we could adjust the vibrance on the snow if we wanted to pull some of that extra color cast out, or warm it or cool it. And so you could do and brush in selective editing there. And you see that we removed some color, got it to the right temperature, and added some extra detail, all with a paintbrush. And a couple of you were asking, well, what about a tablet? If you use a tablet, you could have it use the tablet for the pen pressure for radius or opacity. So you can paint and then push harder to paint with more, or adjust it so it affects the size of the brush as you're painting. So I hope these are giving you guys some ideas. I'm trying to make it through all of the Q&A as well. And we have been recording. So Alok, you missed some things. Don't worry about it. We've been recording. The YouTube link will go live right after the event. Well, it'll take probably an hour for YouTube to compress it because it's a 14-hour day, everyone. But we will also cut those down later for release. Okay, this is looking solid. We're in good shape there. And I want to do another edit. Let's tackle a different problem. So here we have a scene that's really low contrast, and I want to fix that. So we're shooting with a raw file. Again, we're shooting into the sun, which makes this difficult. So let's let templates analyze this first. And it came up with an easy landscape as a starting point. So I'll start there. Sunset. I like that for the color. Clean light. I really like that. That really just tightened up the contrast and brought that image in nicely. Now we've got a problem. Our sky is really, really blown out. Now there's a couple things we can do. First up, you can try accent and see what you can bring back. Additionally, don't be afraid of the light tool here and look at smart contrast. Notice by changing the contrast, I was able actually to bring some of that back. Now go in and do your highlight recovery. See, most people would just go right to highlights or exposure. Don't. There's better tools. Smart contrast lets you change contrast without shifting color. Normally, contrast or exposure, if you change contrast, you lose saturation or you add saturation. Same thing with exposure. You darken the image, it gets a lot more saturated. Smart contrast doesn't have that problem. And instead of overdoing the highlights here, I'm going to come down to super contrast. And now I can adjust the contrast there on the sky and the balance of it and just really get that looking nice. So look at how we rescued all sorts of blown out data. And remember that sky enhancer? Oh yeah, it works great. So I didn't have to necessarily replace the sky. I like that. That's coming along well. And you see it's really coming to life. Boost that a little bit with a little more structure. Structure adds in some detail. I like that. Now you could feel free to tweak your curve. So if you want to pull down things here, look at how we can pull down an area. See? So you can do some pretty cool things here by using multiple tools to recover lost areas. So that's really quite powerful. And I showed this trick earlier today, but it bears repeating. You can add another basic adjustment. And you'll see that that has structure in it. So you could do a second pass. See? And it adds it in. And you can even adjust the shadows and stuff. And because it's on its own overlay here, I can just say, you know what? Put a little gradient mask on it. And I want it to transition here. See? Or let's flip that the other way. And so this way I can create a nice transition so that it is doing that extra pop there on the bottom, but only the bottom of the photo and not the top of the photo. So you could use the local masking tool there with the basic adjustment so you can recover different areas back and paint. Elias showed that trick earlier today as well. So that works very nicely. So you could really finesse that. And I think that's a lot of fun. Okay? All right. Questions, guys, fire away. So put them in the chat, put them into the Q&A pod. I'll do my best. Wacom tablets, yep, Jim, the pressure sensitivity, just load your current driver and that'll work. So that absolutely works just fine. Okay. Also, we put some other goodies in there. So I mentioned, and I haven't shown these yet, the global colors. So I added a cool collection called Global Colors. These are ones that I built from scratch, and they're cool lookup tables designed to simulate different cities around. So they're just based on sort of the mood of each city. So what's nice about Global Colors is we can do some really fun things quickly. Now let's start with the templates, by the way. It's going to analyze the scene, and it came up with Essence as a good starting point. Flawless is a great way just to pop the colors and to get a nice look. But in the Edit module here, I'm going to take advantage of the Mood tool. This is where you can load your own LUTs. There's all sorts of ones in here, and you can mouse over and quickly get an idea of different color grades. 1960, 1990s, for example. Candlelight. And as you play with these, don't be afraid to crank them up a little higher to start. This way you get a pretty good idea of what they're going to do, right? I kind of like that red trace. It leaves just a hint. But you could load custom LUTs, and we've given you all these analog LUTs, which are great for retro looks. We've also given you a new pack called Global Colors. So you can go in, grab the Global Colors, and easily apply them. So let me just go up a level here. Hold on. Kits. There we are. Lookup tables and Global Colors. And I'm going to go with this Sao Paulo LUT. Sao Paulo. And I like that. I'm just going to dial in the contrast and the saturation. And you can see there how we layer that in, how it gives us that nice muted color. Someone was asking earlier, how do I do a matte look? Also in our portrait tools, you'll see high key. So this works well if you want that higher contrast type look. And you can see there how it blows out the highlights. Or you could play with your advanced settings here to independently control the black versus the dynamic range. So that's a great way if you're going for the high contrast or high key look. Okay? All right. Can Luminar AI remove shadows in portrait images? You can use the erase tool, sure. And so you can do that. So there's a couple ways about that. I don't know if I have an example of that available, but you can brush with the erase tool and then erase. But like a harsh shadow going over the face, you could do that also with the dodge and burn tool. So the dodge and burn tool lets you paint with light. So if you want to, I could say, you know what, I want to darken some areas here. And I'll take the strength down, but I can brush and I want to bring out these shadows a little bit on her shirt. So notice there how I brush that in. I'll put it a little stronger so you can see it, and you can start with a higher amount. And I'm going to brush a little bit on her hair here just to dodge that. Now, if I need to, I could zoom in here and I'm just going to erase around that edge because I got a little too close. There we go. And I'll just go with a smaller brush and we'll darken that. There we go. And you can brush that in. Then use the overall amount slider to back it off until it looks good. So that way you could paint with light. And you see I painted in the shadows in her hair, and I painted away and added some shadows there on that. So that works. Okay, cool. John, I can't comment on Mojave. I do know that we've released multiple performance updates, so make sure that you're using the most recent Luminar AI, and also make sure you have enough RAM. So that's not something I'm familiar with. I'm seeing my LUTs because I have a tool called Lattice installed. That's how I'm browsing. But remember, Luminar AI lets you browse them as well in the pop-up list. So you could see them there pretty easily. And again, these are just a great way to stylize an image. So under your Edit tool, you could just mouse over that list and Audition them. Again, that's the Mood tool. And you can see all of these different recipes as a great starting point. And then just adjust the amount, the contrast, and the saturation. And you can dial that into taste to get a cool look. Okay, let's go forward here. I see some questions in the Q&A. Would you use masking to correct the reflections for eyeglasses? We're working on something to make that easier, but you can use masking. You can also just use some of the enhanced tools. So I don't know if I have a regular pair of eyeglasses here. I have some sunglasses here where we can see through a little bit. So let's open one of those up and I'll edit here. So first up, we'll take advantage of a template and we'll go with that flawless correction or fashionista. I actually like fashionista here. It's working pretty nicely. Let's punch in, and I see some scratches and stuff that I want to clean up. So you can use under skin defects removal, and it will look for blemishes and it will often pick up things like acne or anything else. And if there's a really strong thing like the scratch there on his forehead, just use the erase tool and you could brush over that. Okay, so that's going to work nicely to remove that. Now for the glasses, there's a handful of things that you can do. One approach is use your local masking tool. And I'm just going to add a basic adjustment. And what we can do here, let's take the softness down and the radius down a little bit. There we go. And I'll just press the / key or click here to show or hide the mask. So now I could see where I'm brushing. Okay. So this way I can brush in on the eyeglass, and I'm only going to do one so you can see the change on the one and not the other. There we go. So now let's hide that mask and watch some of the things we can do. So we can use structure to enhance that area. And you can see there how it's bringing out that area or down. We can separately adjust the intensity of the color there where I brushed and warm or cool it. So notice how I could adjust that so it's a better match. And you can even play with things like shadows or highlights to really finesse that area and dial it in where you want. So you see there how you could be precise, and negative structure could also be used to blur things a little bit. So that works very nicely to just do some of those targeted enhancements. And you're really seeing that adjustment there on how you can use the local brush. Okay, so Lookup Tool is a lookup table. That's the LUT. And you use that with the Mood tool. So a lot of our recipes for templates have LUTs loaded in them in the Mood tool. So as you're looking and browsing through things, you'll really see that. So if we go here to our template, it's going to scan this scene and come up with some suggestions, including objects. Himashu, if you have questions, just type them into the Q&A area. Just use the Q&A section. And here, I like razor. Look at what that did. That was just so amazing. It instantly popped the color and the texture. And here's what's really cool. Texture with structure, it knows not to overdo the skin. So the coolest thing about structure is that it's skin aware. So you could crank that up and it's going to really bring out the texture, but it did not overdo the skin tones because it's human aware. So that works great. And you could use that details tool there to bring out a little bit more of those medium details, which works out nicely. And you can see there how we brought that image to life. Now, with our Mood tool, we could audition color recipes. And you'll see lots of fun options here, including ones that simulate different lighting conditions, like Riverside here, or San Diego, Santa Barbara. I like that, nice and warm. So if I toggle that on and off, you see how that LUT is doing a nice recipe to really bring out the warmth of the scene. I could dial in contrast and saturation. And now we just have beautiful, rich skin tones there. And they're very natural, but look at how that, unwanted color cast is removed, and we've just added depth and dimensionality to that image. So it's really quite cool. And as we shared earlier, Mystical is great when you want dark glows, and Glow is great with Orton Effect when you want bright glows. So you can dial that in and you'll see Orton Effect soft, and then you can control how soft it is. I'll take that up really strong for a second. Really soft, and you can see that blending. And does it get brighter or darker? So you can actually crank that up pretty high but then put the contrast back in, and now you've got soft diffused light. So notice how that glow effect is adding soft diffused sunlight to it. I can even warm that up so it's adding warm sunlight. So these tools are amazing for color grading. And as you saw earlier, super contrast is your friend. Add some contrast into the highlights. Look at how that burnt out top edge of the grilled cheese sandwich, and I know it's dinner time, so I'm suspecting some of you are going to get hungry from this. We could put contrast there into that highlight edge and then adjust the balance, and look at how that cheese came back. And then I'll put a little bit more contrast there into the midtones, but I could roll where that's positioned so it's more on the hands and not the shirt. And a little bit of contrast there into the shadows. And again, balance it. So use super contrast before you use shadow highlights. And by the way, all of these edits were applied to a JPEG. If you gave that a RAW file, it would be even better. So it's pretty cool. And if you need to, you can use masks. So if I wanted to go after these tomatoes, for example, I could just say, you know what? I want to really pop the saturation of the reds, but I didn't want that on the hands. So I could just click here, grab my paintbrush, and say, you know what? I only wanted that across the top of the sandwich there. So now I want to play with those tomatoes. Let's get those richer and just a little darker. There we go. And you see how you could paint that in. So now those tomatoes are standing out from the rest. Okay, I'm going to stop showing you pictures of food because we still have a bunch of time left and I don't want to chase you all off. But do you guys see how some of these tools really work well? So I think that's nice. So Nick, I hope I explained the super contrast there, but I'll do one more image because super contrast is one of my favorite tools, but we're not going to do food. Let's go to an image that has some contrast problems. So we'll do a typical landscape here, right? So here we're at Lake Lure, and this is lacking a little bit. Let's do templates. We'll let it analyze, and it came back with waterscapes. So I'm going to go in here, put a little bit of deep focus. I like that. Soft fix is actually kind of nice too. I think I like that. So let's go there as a starting point. Now let's talk about contrast. Couple of things to do. First, do not do anything in the light tool to start with except two things. Feel free to click profile, and if you want to pick your landscape profile or other options, you could pick these here. These profiles are installed when you install the free DNG profile or DNG creator tool from Adobe. So if you have Lightroom or Photoshop, it installs them too, but Adobe has a great pack of DCP profiles with their DNG creator tool, and this will install these profiles for your camera. So now when I chose camera standard, it applied the color that Sony applies by default. So my RAW file takes on the look of Sony's default color. And smart contrast, great to add or remove contrast without shifting the color. Those are the only two things I usually touch in the light tool. Don't use shadows, don't use highlights up there. Next, go to Enhance AI and notice how accent evens everything out. And then Sky Enhancer is going to let you target just the sky. Then jump on down to your super contrast. I typically crank these higher to start. I'll take it really high so I can kind of see what's going on. And then as I move the highlight balance, you see, oh, it's pushing it into the bright areas, it's taking it down. So this way I could pop that, and it just added a little bit of contrast into the clouds. Same thing here with midtones. I can shift that, and you see how it's targeting the middle. And shadow contrast, it's letting us target the shadows and add contrast there. So this is a very powerful way to subtly enhance contrast and shadows without using the shadow highlight slider. It's a really nice way to pull that together. Additionally, you could use your local masking tool here and add a basic adjustment. So I could just pull in with a gradient from top to bottom. There we go. And get that where I want. And now tone down the exposure at the top, but bring the highlights back out. That way the sky gets darker, but the clouds stay nice and bright. And you can even add or subtract structure. And look at how a little bit of structure there brought those clouds to life. So you can do some cool things there with those gradients. Okay, I see a couple of questions in chat. We've got about 15 more minutes, so hopefully this works. Yes, you can use HEIF files. That's tied to your operating system though. Mac handles it a little bit better than Windows, but there is an update for Windows 10 to add that compatibility. So make sure that you run your operating system update to help that, okay? So no problem. One of you are saying you're having a crash. Please contact our support team, support@skylum.com, so they can help you out, and that'll work out nicely for you. They do have some useful tips that they can give you. It's a couple of things you might have to update on the operating system level, so no problem. If you want to add things to your own sky, doing sky replacement, don't shoot those elements on a black cloth. Shoot them on a light blue cloth, Richard, or on a light grayish cloth, and that'll make it a lot easier to use sky replacement on things that aren't actually skies. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's see here. Why don't I see skies in AI? Can't load any as well. So if you want to use the sky replacement, you want to go on over and just choose Sky AI and then click the sky selection. If that button doesn't open, it's because Luminar doesn't detect a sky. That will then allow you to layer in the new sky, and it's added, and then it combines. Now, it can't take the previous sky out of the water reflection, so this works best when you're pulling that in, but you can adjust your reflection strength with the reflection amount if you want to make that more powerful there, and that worked nicely. Or you could have used the erase tool ahead of time to remove any unwanted reflections. So now we could adjust the intensity of it and refine the strength. I'm going to actually put a little haze in that because it's too strong of a sky and I want it to match the haziness of what's there. So now it takes on the haze and the smoke of the mountains. And we can even just tone that sky down a little bit and get it so it's a better match. So use those sky adjustments to dial that in, and I'm going to take that reflection amount down a little bit. You see how it pulls it all together. Okay? All right, let's see here. We got a couple more questions. Since you can't bring in profiles from Micro Four Thirds camera, does the pic that was initially displayed include the camera profile? So it depends is the answer. So some Micro Four Thirds will have profiles that can be opened, and you just go down to your optics tool and turn them on there. Remember, if you're using raw files, make sure you go to the optics tool. So here's some pictures from photographer Jessica Basie. I'll start with the edit module. Again, in the light tool, don't overdo it, but do feel free to assign the camera profile. So in this case, we assign the portrait profile from the Canon camera series. Then under optics, this is where if there are lens profiles, you could tell it to do automatic distortion correction. And you see that it recognized the wide angle distortion from the settings of the lens and it matched it to the lens correction and was able to fix that. So you may want to take advantage of some of those options that you might not have known is there. DCP profiles and lens correction for optics. That works out really nicely. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm looking at this image and it's just a little too contrasty. So I'm going to reduce the smart contrast. I like that. And using accent, we'll just balance out that exposure a little, which works out well. This image would benefit from a vignette. So I'll just put a little darker vignette with a nice feather. And we've brought the image to life. So this was a long exposure with a move and then popping the flash. So she snapped the camera with a slow move to blur the background and then froze the action with a flash, so rear sync. So you can do some fun stuff like that. Put a little bit of structure in that image, and you'll see that it enhances some of the details without overdoing the skin. And then in our skin tools here, even though she's not perfectly tight, we can go in here and use skin and face AI. So we can smooth out that skin with the amount slider. We could tone down the shine on her skin, and you see the hot spot there on her nose from the flash is taken right out. Under Face AI, I could layer in the same color eyes if I want, and then adjust the iris visibility if you really want those to pop. You could change the eyes. If you don't want to change them, leave them original, but still use that really cool iris flare to put a little bottom glint on them, and they come to life. Eye enhancer, and they get sharper. Dark circle removal. Let's go ahead here and just frame the eyebrows a little thicker. And I'm just going to darken the lips down with just a hint of saturation. So you can see that that was very powerful for quickly fixing the face. And I'm just going to tone that flare down. It's a little much. I pushed it so you could really see it. And Face Light is awesome for precisely filling in the face with a little bit of digital flash. So you can see there how easy that is. And because we didn't use any masks and everything is AI aware, all I could do now is grab the rest of those pictures and say sync. Adjustments, sync. And let's go this way as well, sync. And the AI tool is going to analyze each image and be able to adjust to the different scenes. So you'll see there that it was able to use my recipe and adapt to the content. So even though this image has a different exposure to it, it's able to recognize it and adjust. I'll just give that a second to load. And what you're going to see here is that we can do a whole bunch. So come on, Luminar. Let me pop back out here for a second. So we can go in there and we can do all sorts of things. There we go. So there's that image. And let's pop in. And what it's doing there is really pulling that all together. So you can use these, and you'll see that what it's able to do is quickly fix the image. So there, it did the distortion correction, it did the same portrait adjustments, it did the color profiles, and those adjustments were intelligent. So I only had to really develop one photo from the shoot, and then I could use it on every other image very quickly. And if you're doing this super fast and you go, you know, that's good, it's just a bit much here, it's just a little too warm because the lighting was very different, I could just go on into edit, and sure, I could tweak every single slider, or with my master slider here, I could just blend it back with the original image very quickly and back that off. And now it's done. So you don't always have to start over again and edit from the very beginning. All right. We've covered a ton of questions. Vanelli is going to be joining us back in a minute. What I'm going to do is in the chat pod, I'm going to put those freebies again so you could download those, okay? Again, I see one or two of you saying you're having some crashing problems. Please make sure you connect with our support department. So you need to connect with support@skylum.com. They'll help you out for sure. And Vanelli, while I'm copying these in there, I know that you had a workaround for some of those people experiencing crashes on Windows. Do you want to share that really quick?
Yeah, let me...
Turn your mic up a little bit. You're a little low. Or it might just be I have my speaker down.
Yeah.
Can I talk again?
Yeah, nothing has changed.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep, can you promote me? All right. Yeah, so what I found that works out really good, especially for Windows, is you rename your old catalog. So typically it's in the pictures folder. So you just go into the pictures folder. I'd like to put _old in front of the catalog. When you do this, and keep in mind, Luminar AI is closed. When you relaunch it, it'll reforce it to rebuild a new catalog, and you're good to go. Every time I recommended it to people, that was the solution. What happens is with our Windows, for whatever reason, sometimes it's running the program side by side. And if you open it with the old version, then the new version, the catalog doesn't like it.
Yeah, I'd suggest you guys uninstall before you install the update if you're on Windows. That helps. Also, and I'll just say this from the bottom of my heart, don't store your library in your pictures folder where you store your pictures. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, and it gets really weird if you've got pictures and the library in the same location. Your catalog is a document. Store it in your documents folder. Keep your pictures in your pictures folder, and this will cut down on a lot of those issues. Nancy, I put the links for the download in the chat pod. They're already there, so feel free to access that. And you could deal with these extras tomorrow for sure. So you can download them and play with them. That's great. That special price, the deep dive price that we put in there, that is going to be able to take $10 off any of those add-on items. Okay, so perfect, no problem. I hope that helps. And it looks like somebody else put a suggestion in there from support, so feel free to try that. I'm going to get out of the way, but before I leave, I just want to say a couple of things. So we've got a great guest next. I'm going to let Vignette introduce him, but we've had a ton of fun today. Vignette and I have been tag teaming, so we started this process at 7 a.m. Eastern, and it's now 7 p.m. And I made a deal with Vignette. I took the early shift. He's going to take the late shift. So he stays up late all the time. Like I'll log in at 3 in the morning and he's on Facebook. So Vignette's a total night owl. So he's promised to stay until 9 o'clock. But if you keep giving him attention and feedback, he's not known for keeping time very well. So you could just see how loopy he gets after the 15th hour or the 16th hour. So it should be fun. But Vignette's got a bunch of great guests lined up. So you're going to hear from Mike Cabasi next. Then Angela's coming back, and then we also are going to have Levi Sim, who's a great portrait photographer. We hope you guys had a lot of fun. Today was not meant to be a big fancy day. Rather, what we're trying to do here is just share some useful content with you, walk you through what's possible with Luminar, and show with you our passion for this product and how it could do a whole lot. We showed you the easy stuff because that's simple. You saw some sky replacement because it's really cool. But we hope you also saw a bunch of tools you never opened before. We wanted this to be much more than the quick marketing video or quick tip that you see, and we wanted to dig into the tools and also let you see how different photographers and artists use it. So sincerely, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to hand off now to Vignette, and he's going to take you through some cool stuff with Mike Cabasi.